Hi there. How are we doing, Christine?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Thank you for joining.
Of course.
Okay, guys, we'll give it a couple more minutes. How did your forecasting calls go, Christine, to put you on the spot?
Well, I kind of didn't do them, but what I did do was I took all the news regarding, Silicon Bank, the Valley Bank, and then how interest rates are going. And if more as rates go down, more people are going to jump in to buy. So if you're looking, you should, lock in your rates. And if you're getting ready to sell, it might be a good time to do that. So I had a 75% open rate on that. So then I'm going to call those people. So I wasn't like super cool on doing just like a cold call thing, but now I can follow up with an email from the email.
Okay, well, I think that's great. And definitely good feedback. And thank you for communicating that. I'm sure you're not alone. We'll have to ask the other folks on the call if they felt the same way. How many people on the call had issues or ran into the feeling of having an issue with making a forecasting call because it felt like a cold call? Either come off of mute or just put in the chat.
Yes,
Anybody?
just
me. Okay, cool. Not a problem. All right, well, we're actually going to address that today, Christine, so not to worry. That's something that I also got feedback on, is that, the forecasting calls, they're great in concept, and they actually work very well in practice, but if you have to feel comfortable enough to actually make the call. So we're going to talk today about reconnection calls, and that's actually one of the and ways to re-engage people. And that's one of the things that I think will make this a little bit more palatable for a lot of folks. So I appreciate that feedback. Thank you. Also, shout out to Mr. Lowry. I greatly appreciated his feedback. I'm going to start today a little differently. Before we dive into the slides, I just want to show everyone really quickly where all this content lives if you're not as familiar with the dashboard. So we're going to start by going through the dashboard real quick into where the forum is, and then I'll jump into today's slides. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. We'll get kicked off here. And, old hat at this point, give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen. Appreciate that. Thank you so much, guys. Okay, so here's your homepage. And your homepage, I would imagine, looks fairly similar. And what you're going to want to do here is you're going to want to navigate to groups, my groups. You'll click on my groups. You'll see all the groups that you're a part of. One of those will inevitably be prospecting. So you'll navigate to prospecting and you'll click that. And this is where you'll see activity. We've got about 319 people in the group. So a phenomenal place to network with other folks and talk about business development and prospecting and whatnot from around the country. And you're also going to see this forum section next to activity. Go ahead and click that. And that's where you'll see each of our sessions that have gone past, and you can click on these, and in those you'll see all the slides linked. Any document that I share with you via slides will also be there. You can make a copy and then make it your own. Any questions on that? No? All good? Okay, great. Real talkative bunch today. I like it. All right, so let's go into the content. As usual, I'll start with a recap of where we should be. And again, this is just an invitation that if you're not, you're more than welcome to reach out to me, send me an email, Steven@Chirag Shah Coaching. I'll help you through and hopefully catch you up if you're not all the way caught up. But this is where we started. We started with our lifetime value of clients, really getting clear on who are our platinum, gold, and silvers, and then what is the brand commitment that we have to them? How do we want to execute? What are we doing now, and what do we want to do in the future? We put that into our tackle box, our fish frame. We then put that into an activity forecast, which again is not a tracker, but an exercise to really get ahead of where we're going from a business development standpoint over the next quarter or 2 quarters, depending on how long you want to do it. Then what we did is we took the onus of tracking off of our shoulders, put it onto the Compass CRM, and we put everybody into a checklist. Then we took a look at, okay, well, what are we great at? What are we not so great at? How can we sort of divide and conquer and look to leverage our skill sets with maybe an assistant or another affiliate that, you know, is great at what we're not so great at? That was the superpower exercise. Then we did the running partner exercise, where we really said, okay, I know there's a million new things and shiny toys and pennies that we can have in real estate, but who are the 5 people that I really admire that are realtors, either in my market or in an adjacent market, that are going to kind of keep me at my cutting edge? And so in this exercise, we listed those folks, we listed what we admired about them, really got clear on, like a child would, what gives them their advantage in our you know, perception, what gives them the secret sauce that makes them them, and are those things that I can emulate. So these are going to be the 5 people that you're going to want to keep an eye on throughout your, you know, your month, your quarter, your year. And if they've got a great new concept on social media, you might want to emulate that, right? If they've got a great, you know, way that they're presenting to their clients, and you're in communication with these folks and getting them off the fence of, hey, is now the right time to buy or sell, you may want to emulate that. So these are the folks that you just want to keep a weather eye to, because they're going to keep you honest, and they're going to keep you going at a great pace. We then looked at, okay, well, we've got all this great prospecting and business development stuff planned out. How are we going to fit it into our day? And we took a look at what we deem as important and urgent. And then we started getting into our forecasting and collection mapping tools. So this is really where we left off, in having a conversation around, you know, if you've got 200 people in your CRM, you know, imagine the power if you're able to really say with conviction what the story is for each one of those people. And when I say story, I mean, what is their journey in their home buying story, right? When are they thinking of selling this house or buying a new one, and why? And that way we can get away from the transactional aspect of the relationship of, you know, when are you looking to buy or sell? And we can focus on what really matters, which is what they care about, their lives, right? So if you know they're going to sell when, and I always use the same example, but when their daughter goes off to college, then you can, when you check in with them and when you're inviting them to things and when you're seeing them out and about or whatever it might be, ask them about their daughter. Which school is she looking at? Did she get accepted? Are they thinking of moving still? It's also another opportunity for you to connect with an agent at a different network if they're moving out of your locale. So lots of great opportunity here. And we implemented kind of we shared rather the template to a forecasting script. Please feel free again to make this your own. So after that, I went through, you know, how you leverage the collections to kind of keep that content engagement. So now we're on to new content. So welcome to today. Again, NAR says on average, people are moving every 5 to 10 years. And I think you probably, depending on your market, could agree it's somewhere in there. That means 10 to 20% of the people in your CRM are going to move today, or move this year, excuse me, on average. So I just want you to take that in for a second and just ask yourself, okay, if I have 100 people in my CRM, on the low end, statistically 10 people are moving. 10 deals are going to happen. If I have 200, 20 deals. And then ask yourself, what would your business look like if you knew which 20? If you could say with conviction, these are the reasons that these people are going to move, and now I can focus not on getting new people and putting them into my CRM, which you're going to want to do, but I can really focus on serving those people. How can I make their experience better? And so that really comes with forecasting, but there's a small problem. And Christine already highlighted what that problem is, potentially small problem. And so that's what I want to talk about today. I only feel comfortable calling 10% of my contacts. And I absolutely adore this photo, so I wanted to share it. So how many people on this call, and you can chat, you can come off mute. I like collaboration, so, you know, feel free to do whatever you'd like. But how many people on this call feel like this is in some way true for them? Okay, appreciate that. So, and this is where I'm going to beg you to come off mute. Why do you think that is? Why do you feel uncomfortable calling people that are in your CRM?
because I don't know what to say to them. I don't want to just call and say, how are you? They will think that I'm intruding on their busy day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Who was that? I'm sorry. Could you just say?
Oh, hi, this is Natalia from Jersey City.
Hi, Natalia.
Hi.
Good to see you.
Good to
How many
see you.
people feel that like Natalia, that it's just, or like Christina, who put a great thing in the chat, that it's just been too long, and and I was terrible at keeping in touch, and so it's just awkward at this point. Okay. So here's the reality. In my experience, it is awkward. It's weird, but we've got to get through it if we really want to serve these people and if we really want to grow our business. Think of the power you would have if you knew everyone in your database. Now, some of you, I'm sure, have thousands and thousands of people in your database, and we can have that conversation as well as to whether that's effective, ineffective. It really depends on what your strategy is for business development. But even so, even if I'll change the way I phrase that, even if you could add another 20% of your database to the people you do feel comfortable calling, how would that change your business?
A lot.
Yeah. And probably change your life in the process. So, at the end of the day, we've got to get through it, is what I'm trying to say. That there's got to be, at some point, there's got to be a way that we can actually do this and feel comfortable doing it. So in my experience, Christina said, I sent a bulk message. Oh, excuse me. I'm going to read that later. Okay. So in my experience, the way to do this is you need to have a reconnection script. And by the way, when I say script, I am not saying that you should be reading off of a script. That went out in the 80s in my mind. But if you don't know where you're going, it can become very uncomfortable when you're on the phone because you feel like it's a totally new experience every single time and anything could happen. And for me, that creates a tremendous amount of anxiety. I don't know if anybody else feels the same way. So having a script and just knowing what your plan is when you reach out to somebody and why you're reaching out to them usually does a lot to really calm you down so that you're not in your head having the other conversation of, oh my God, I can't believe I'm saying this. I'm listening to myself. That was a dumb comment. What did I just say? What am I going to say next? But rather you're present, you're listening to the person. And that's where all the good stuff is. That's where you're going to hear something in their tone, something in the way that they said a word, their language choice, that's really going to allow you to connect. So what's our reconnection script look like? Does it look like, hi, I'm so-and-so, I'm a realtor. Do you have a minute to chat? No, it does not, right? So what are we going to do? So to do that, I've got to introduce a concept to you, because the concept is far more important in my mind than the actual script. So this is the pitch problem, okay? And this is taken directly from Oren Klaff's Pitch Anything. Has anyone, which I have linked in this, so you can feel free to read it and listen to it, but has anyone ever read or listened to Oren Klaff's Pitch Anything? Go ahead and let me know in the chat or come off mute. No? Okay. In my experience, one of the more concise and sort of seminal works in understanding why people are either intrigued with what you have to say or couldn't give a rip. So 3 brains. Now, this is not neuroscience. And so anyone who has a neuroscience background will absolutely, disagree with this. And they're right to do so. But this is an easy way of communicating what actually is happening in the neuroscience behind it. So 3 brains. We'll start with the croc brain. The croc brain is your most primitive brain. It is the animal brain. It's the brain that keeps you safe. Okay. It's the brain that triggers the amygdala and feels all that pain, pleasure, fear, excitement, yada, yada. Okay. Then there's the midbrain. The midbrain developed millions of years later. The midbrain allows us to be the tribe that we are. It allows us to be the social creatures that we are. It allows us to share information and to understand who is affiliated with whom, right? The idea of being a family and then being a community. That's midbrain. Then there's the neocortex. The neocortex is the most recently developed part of the brain. It does all of the rational thinking. It does all of the computing. It does all of the mapping and all of the math, right? So the problem is that when you finally figure out all of your value, now I realize this is on the screen, so feel free to cheat if you want, but answer me this. When you figure out all of your value, you figure out all the things that you can offer in concierge and CMA and, you know, what Compass has to offer with its technology and what the brand is doing with across the country and the agent referral network, which part of the brain do you think that all that, you know, fun stuff is in? Not the mid.
Frontal cortex.
Yep, it's in the neocortex. So that's where your pitch comes from when it leaves your lips. And by the way, when I say pitch, I realize that for some of you, that might be an aggressive word. Every time you call someone, even when you're just checking in, you need to follow this, in my opinion, you need to follow this format, because you're always inviting. That's what a pitch is. A pitch is just an invitation. You're always inviting. And it comes down to whether you invite well or you don't invite well. People are either going to be at your party if you invite well. If you don't invite well, nobody's going to be there. Guess what? The band was still awesome. And what I mean by that in the analogy is, like, you're a great realtor, but the way you invite is going to make a huge difference on how many people get to know that. Okay. So it's coming from your neocortex. Now, answer me this. Where is it getting received? On the other end of the line or in person? Where is that person hearing it? Are they hearing it in the neocortex, the midbrain, or the croc brain?
The croc.
Yep, absolutely right. Absolutely right. And just to make matters worse, when you get any kind of notification on your phone, what do you think that immediately triggers? That's immediately going to trigger a sensory response, most likely going to go to your amygdala, most likely going to be a fight or flight, because most people have it wired in their brain. They've created a pathway that when that ding goes off or the buzz happens or something, there needs to be an immediate response, right? So you're already dealing with somebody who's been overstimulated and who now is like in a panic of what the heck is this? Now add to that they either don't have your number or they have your number but haven't seen you in a long time. That's why, by the way, anyone else had the experience of, like, you get the notification, maybe you're not aware of this, maybe you are, you get the notification, you feel the sensory fear come up inside you, you look at your phone, you see it's somebody you love, and immediately you are flooded with dopamine and you're just excited and you pick up the phone and you're all smiles. Now, contrast that with an 800 number, right? It's all happening, is my point. So the reason I'm sharing this with you is we've got to understand that when we're reaching out, we are first addressing the croc brain. Then we're going to address the midbrain, and then we're going to address the neocortex. And while we're all, you know, super smart, developed, great people, you're literally traversing millions and millions and millions of years in evolution in the first minute or two of a phone call. No pressure, right? So, all right, let's take a look at what that looks like. So this is where, and I've yet to figure out how to, I'm constantly moving around the video and the chat because I can't see what the hell I've written on this thing. So this is just fun for me. Okay, so first thing we want to do is we want to make sure, and this is why this goes back to like our first session where we talked about turning on and really getting in touch with, you know, what's going on in your heart and your brain and putting those two things together, the EKG, the EEG, right? All those things with the meditation. You want to make sure that the tone, the delivery is something that is pleasing and exciting to people. You don't want to overdo it because that, again, can elicit fear, but you also don't want to be underwhelming. You don't want to be, the brain is, you want to think about it this way. The brain is constantly thinking, how do I conserve energy? So anything that looks and sounds like what they've seen or heard before, they're going to ignore it. Because by ignoring it, you're conserving very, very important calories. So you want to make sure that you're doing two things. One, you're alleviating any threat, and two, you are introducing something novel. Okay, so I'll go through what I mean by that. Just bear with me. Then what we want to do is we want to connect with the midbrain. And the best way I found to do that is really through a social connection. Hey, I'm calling you for this reason. I was just chatting with so-and-so, and they said this about you. And so it made me want to speak to you about this, right? Very quickly, they know why you're calling. They know who you're in connection with, and you can obviously, you know, adapt that as necessary. But really, you want to make sure that you are setting that social context. That's going to be your stickiness, because even if you come on the phone and you're, you know, you're very smooth and you're calm and you're exciting, you have a good tone and all those things, if you don't peg some kind of social repercussion to the way that they act on the phone with you, which is what you're doing, frankly, when you say, hey, I just spoke to Susan and she said this about you, right? And you usually want to lead the brain by saying something. And obviously you want this to be accurate. You don't want to be lying to people, which is why it's always a great way if you're going to reach out to somebody. Little extra work, but I think it's well worth it. You're going to reach out to somebody, call the person that you know knows them first, that you are comfortable with, have a conversation about them. I guarantee you that will come out in your conversation. It will be genuine. You won't have to try to do anything. It will just flow. And that also gives you a backstop, because if you don't follow up with the person you're talking to right now, there's a good chance that that other person will follow up, and then your name will be brought up because it is out of the ordinary that you're calling. Right? So just a little bit of best practice there. But midbrain, we definitely want to focus on what is the social connection and why that person thought what I'm about to say would be of interest. The last thing is the neocortex. The neocortex is, again, that part of the brain that figures it all out. This is the part of the brain that we want to leave hanging. So we want to leave this part of the brain with, what don't I know? What that means is you're going to ask a question that creates interest. Have you ever been here? Interesting. Do you know them? Okay. And you want to pause and you want to leave it. And because that is going to create some form of intrigue, because they have to figure out how that phrase, if you're in music, right, how that phrase ends so that there's completion. How many people, by the way, have just like that pet peeve where if like they're writing something down and they fill out like half the sheet, they have to like fill out the rest of the sheet, right? Just because they got to get it done. I know there's definitely people out there that like that. I'm one of them. So in any event, this is sort of where you want to think, high level, what you want to think about when you are thinking about reconnecting with someone and making a phone call. Now, I'm going to pause there real quick. We have more to go over, but any questions that have come up so far?
Can I ask a question?
Yes, of course.
So, two-pronged question.
Go ahead, Natalia. I'm sorry.
So like, it's great in theory. I understand what you're saying. Like, at least for my clients, unfortunately, they all sort of like, they don't know each other. I don't really have a lot in common, like they don't have in common with each other. So when we're talking about that social connection, there are clients that I'm guilty that I haven't reached out in like 2-3 years. I have no idea what's going on in their lives. I have no acquaintances in common with them. They don't have Facebook profile, or they don't post much. What do you, and unfortunately, I have a lot of clients like that. Like, what do you suggest in those cases? Like, how do you use that social connection? How do you go around it, I guess?
Sure. It's a great question. Couple ways you can go around it, or actually use it just in the same way, is use their community. I was just in your neighborhood. I was in this, that, and the other thing, and I thought of you. Right? Use their church or other affiliations, anything that is a broader group that they could have some commonality to. Again, all of this is subconscious, so you don't have to really do much. You just need to provide a little bit of continuity to how you guys are connected, right? Because believe it or not, even if you sold them a property in that neighborhood, I could argue that while you don't live in that neighborhood, you have some affiliation to that neighborhood. You've done work in that neighborhood. So that would be one example of how you could go about that. The other thing is, and we could talk about this at another time, and feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to work with you one-on-one to do this, but you also could start to, with those people, go a different direction and not necessarily reconnect, but connect for the first time. And even though you've done a deal with them, say, listen, like, here's the thing. I really enjoyed the deal that we did together. This is the reason why. And, you know, I'd love to get to know you. So tell me a little bit about yourself. I feel like for whatever our reasons were, we didn't get a chance to have that conversation. So let's have that conversation now. I'm interested in who you are and what goes on outside of your real estate, you know, needs. So that would be my answer to that. Does that help at all?
Yes. So for example, it would be appropriate to say, oh, you know, did you, as a social connection, did you know there was like a new restaurant open on your street, and have you tried it?
Absolutely.
Or something like that.
Absolutely. And that actually would go into the neocortex part, but you could use them both. You could say, listen, I was just driving down your street. I'm working with some of your new neighbors, you know, even if they're not their actual neighbors, but I'm working with people in your neighborhood. I just saw that there's going to be a new restaurant opening, and have you heard about this? Right. That's a great way. Perfect example of how you can actually engage all three. Once you get into, have you heard about this restaurant? That is going to be the neocortex part, but that's where you want to be. All these things flow in the matter of seconds. So this is not like you're gonna have to go in stages, but you do want to go in this order. So that would be a perfect example, Natalia, of how you'd want to engage all three.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
Absolutely. Okay. Lynn has a question. Says, when I get a call from somebody I haven't heard from in a while, I'm immediately waiting for a pitch. And it usually comes by the end of the conversation. It makes me feel uncomfortable. So being on the pitch end of the call makes me feel uncomfortable being on. Oh, got it. Sorry. Learning to read. So I understand that makes you feel uncomfortable. I think my question, Lynn, would be which part of the pitch, when you're listening to the pitch, makes you not like that call or waiting for the pitch. I'm assuming there's an experience there that you didn't find pleasing, and that you're associating when I say, you're on the pitch side of the call.
Hi, so Lynn here.
Hi.
So when I hear from somebody I haven't heard from a while, I don't know why it's an automatic response. I guess it's the croc brain, waiting to see, why are they calling? What do they need from me? What are they looking to get from me? So to make that call to somebody I haven't talked to in a long time, I feel like they're probably in the same place. They're waiting, oh, what's Lynn got for me? Or it's not like, what is she going to offer me? It's like, what does she need from me? She's going to ask me who I know who might like to sell. She's going to ask how I like my house. What is she going to ask that it's going to bring it back to real estate? I don't want them to feel like they're a mark. How do I, if I run into them outside somewhere, like at a restaurant, I have no problem reconnecting, but making a call is just very uncomfortable. I'm better at note writing, but picking up the phone and interjecting myself into the day is different now than it might have been 10 years ago. Now my kids don't even want me to call in the middle of the day, so the phone is a different tool now than it used to be. People don't pick up the phone that much. If you do, it's immediate. It's like, what are they doing? So that's how I'm feeling about it. I'm very uncomfortable picking up the phone.
I appreciate that honesty. I don't think you're alone. And I'm certainly aware that the phone and the way we use the phone has changed. What I'm going to ask though, Lynn, and I promise that I will circle back, is let's go on to the next slide. And I think I'm going to address some of your concerns potentially.
Thank you.
Given that, this may not be for you, right? And that's why, these slides and this course, I want you to take what you like and use it, and the ones you don't like, I want you to leave it right there and not. So,
Thank you.
but I greatly appreciate the feedback, and I greatly appreciate the transparency.
Thanks. I'm listening.
Of course. All right, let's keep going. I love the discourse, by the way. And then Natalia, actually, if I could do a demonstration of the appropriate tone, speed of the voice for the croc brain. Yes, that is going to rely on your intuition. So that's a harder ask, but I'll try, Natalia, to give you a demo at some point here. But let's go into sort of what you're going to be up against when you call. This is actually, Lynn, you did a phenomenal, I should have to, we should be, people are going to think we're in cahoots. You did a phenomenal lead into this. So thank you. But when people get a phone call from you, usually it's going to make them uncomfortable because they don't know what you're calling for, and they don't want to feel like a mark, and they don't want to be interrupted in their day, or at least they don't think they want to be interrupted. It's interesting, however, that when you interrupt them with something pleasing, how grateful they are for that interruption to break up the monotony. So it really is on you to make it good. A couple things you want to understand, though, and there's more about this in Oren Klaff's Pitch Anything, just by the sheer confines of time. We're already at 11:30. So for those of you that do have to go, I understand. I actually have to go here at 11:40. So I'm going to try to wrap this up as quickly as possible, but I want to make sure I get through the content. So a couple things you need to understand. Every time you come into contact with somebody, your frame is colliding, according to Oren Klaff, colliding with another person's frame. And the stronger frame is going to win, right? So think of a frame like a bubble around you, or like a picture frame, the borders of you. They are going to collide all the time, anytime you come into any kind of communication with another. And the person, he or she, with the strongest frame, or who owns the frame, is going to win. Easiest way for me to communicate this to you is in a police example. Imagine you are cruising down your highway of choice, right? I think PCH, but you're cruising down your highway. The sun's in your face. The wind is in your hair. You've got the top back on the convertible. You are having a blast. Your favorite song is on. You're enjoying, and you're just loving life and just driving down the road. Now, all of a sudden, you see lights. You hear woo, woo, woo. And immediately that good time is over. And if you've had this experience, I'm sure you have some sort of feeling that is still in the bottom of your gut as to what that feels like. And you immediately, your heart sinks into your stomach. It's at that point that your brain starts racing to answer questions of, how fast was I going? Oh my gosh, I hate it. Oh my, when was the last time this happened? This happened 2 weeks ago. I'm in so much trouble. How am I going to get out of this? What do I do? Do I, and you start asking your brain, what frame am I going to use, right? Is it the, I didn't see the signs, or I thought you could go faster on this highway, or, and then you usually most of us settle on, we call the nice guy frame. The nice guy frame is, hey officer, I'm a great person. I'm a great driver. I'm so sorry. I got distracted. Thank you for pulling me over. That's the one I use. I appreciate that. Thank you so much for pulling me over and for keeping us all safe. I love what you do, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? Now, what does the officer usually say? Knocks on the window and says, what? Oh, come on.
License and registration, please.
There you go. Thank you so much. License and registration. Now, I want you to just pay quick attention to what has happened in the last 2 minutes of that story. The officer has lights. You do not have lights. The officer has sounds. You do not have the similar sounds. The officer came up behind you, probably faster than you were even going, right, to catch up to you, and then pulled you over to a complete rest. Got out of his car, right? Probably, catty cornered his car in your car to keep you safe, quote unquote, but also to let you know that, like, this is, he now is around you. He now owns you. And now he's going, or she is going to walk up to your car in a uniform, which you do not have, with a firearm that you do not possess, or maybe you do, depending on where you live. But the point is that they're in control. and you know it. And their frame, they have the moral authority frame. They have, quite a few things actually on top of that. They have a power frame, but I won't get into the details. And you succumb immediately to that frame. Now, that is a completely exaggerated example. And some of you might be asking, what the hell does this have to do, excuse my French, with my phone call that I'm making to reconnect with somebody? I'm using the example to just showcase what a frame is. Okay. And so when you are reaching out to somebody, you want to start to think, okay, what frame am I up against? And more than likely, you're going to be up against, especially if you're reaching out cold to somebody, you're going to be up against a time frame. Because whenever you call, they were in the middle of doing something else. And so they're going to always, as they get nervous, most likely they're going to lean on a, hey, can I call you back later? I'm just in the middle of this. Hey, well, I'm actually doing this right now. And when you reach out to them and they have that, you have to understand that that is probably what you're going to have to be up against, because if you succumb to that, if you end up saying, and it's not really meant to be so confrontational, this is actually, we appreciate when one frame can very elegantly overtake another. But when you call them up and they're like, hey, I'm running around, I'm really busy. You go, oh, okay, well, just really quickly, right? You're already subjugating yourself, and it's going to be very difficult for you to create the intrigue that you're hoping to create, which is really just to set up that next conversation and a deepening of your relationship. Now, this is a very big concept, and I know you're probably going to leave this call thinking, that really wasn't that comprehensive. He kind of threw a lot out there. And so I highly, highly recommend that you go into Pitch Anything, you listen or read to the book, because it will go through very, very clearly what this is and how you use it. And I'm going to tell you that this is a game changer, for lack of a better term, an absolute game changer once you understand the mechanics of what I'm describing here. So this is just meant to kind of pique your interest and create awareness if you weren't aware of what frame control looks like. So biggest frames you're going to run into, just really quickly, again, is, and now I got 4 minutes left, is the power frame, the time frame, and the analyst frame. Power frame is self-explanatory, right? I'm in control. We're going to do this my way. The analyst frame is really just the frame that a lot of, if you have any engineering clients, lawyers, etc., they're going to hit you, and it's a stereotype, but they're going to hit you with the analyst frame, which is really just a bunch of peppering questions around details that actually aren't all that relevant to the overall subject matter or making a decision. It's just their way of keeping control of what's going on in the situation. So I digress. You're going to use the strong method. It'll explain what that is, of setting the frame, telling the story, revealing the intrigue, offering the prize, and nailing the hook point and getting the deal. But I'm not going to go into that now, just in the interest of time. So how do we do this? What do I recommend? Many of you have said, and Lynn, you said this perfectly, that the phone has changed. And so because the phone has changed, people don't like it when you call them out of the middle of the day. Some do, so I won't completely agree with that statement, but most people prefer a text. Why do they prefer a text? They prefer a text because it gives them the space. Give them the space to decide how they want to respond to that. So what I like to do is I like to send a text message, and this is actually a very calculated text message. A text message the day before to say 5 people. And in that text message, you're going to say, hey, so-and-so, I know it's been way too long. You came to mind the other day when I was X, and this needs to be specific. I'm going to give you a call tomorrow. Is morning or afternoon better for you? And then you put in your name. Okay. Couple things to note really quickly. There's a couple funnels that people can go down here. One, they can say, oh my God, so good to hear from you. Tomorrow's actually not good. Can we speak on Wednesday? They might say morning's better, afternoon's better. They may not respond. And you can address each one, and it builds leverage no matter what they say. So I'm just going to pick the hardest one. If they don't respond, you can always follow up with that call and say, hey, texted you yesterday, calling, like I said, I would love to chat with you. But I didn't hear back, so I just thought I'd give you a call. right? It gives reason to why you're calling, that you're not just sitting there calling out of the blue. You've already answered the question of the why they came to mind and why you're calling. And then that is going to help address that crock brain fear, so that, like Lynn said, you're not sitting, you cannot have the person sitting there the entire time wondering in the back of their mind, why is this person really calling? You have to be genuine and tell them, this is why I'm calling. But there's a way to do it where you can actually create intrigue at the end so that they're interested in that next call. So if you need a script for this, if you want to go through what that call sounds like, send me an email. I'm happy to do this for 10 people, and I will go through and spend the time so you have a very, curated and comfortable way of communicating this over the phone. Okay. So if you want to do that, email me, Steven@ChiragShahCoaching.com, and I'm happy to help you there. Again, the 10 limit is just, unfortunately, the reality of the confines of time. Okay. So for next week, here's what we want to do. I would identify 100 people in your CRM or in your network, if they're not in your CRM, that have a first level connection with you. So meaning that you actually know them personally, but you've just lost touch, or you would like to be closer. Schedule 5 people a day for the next 20 days. Text each person the night before, letting them know you're going to be calling, and then put them, once you've connected with them, create a checklist of all these people that you're now reconnected with that leads into your activity forecast type of checklist, right? So the idea would be, if I'm calling you with a reconnection call, at the end of that call, I'm inviting you to an event, or to, to stay in touch more frequently. And that could just be, hey, I'd love to stay in touch more frequently. We should do this again. Why don't we stay in touch? Would you like to stay in touch? Yes, great. Okay, then give me a call, in the next couple months, whenever works for you, and I'll do the same. And that way you have now established a neutral ground where when you call the next time, there isn't going to be that fear of, why are they calling? They're calling because we agreed we're going to stay in touch. Why are we going to stay in touch? Because of this common thing that we share, whatever that is for you, and you'll make that decision. So pitch anything, Oren Claff. We are right at time. So I apologize that I won't be able to answer any other questions, but if you have questions, send me an email and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Okay. Now, I think Herson wanted to do a poll of some kind. So Herson, are you able to do that even if I step away? Okay. 4 questions. I think we have, okay. So go right ahead. If you guys could do that poll, that would be really, really helpful to Herson and the team. And I greatly appreciate it. Thank you for all the thank yous. It really means a lot to me. And this is a great concept. And I know we covered a lot today. I tend to try to pack these in as quickly as I can. Okay.
Thank you, Stephen.
You got it. See you, Jay.
Thank you, Stephen. Great
You got
class.
it. Thank you.
We hope to see you again.
Likewise. Bye,
Great.
guys.
Hi.